my God, is Frankenstein gonna kill that little girl?
Dr. Frankenstein isn't in this scene. That's Frankenstein's monster.
Hey there, monster maniacs. It's Heidi from Channeling Spirits. People are always eager to correct you if you happen to call the monster Frankenstein.
Frankenstein!
Oh, hey, how you doing?
But is it actually incorrect? And if it is, what should we call him? Join us as we pry open the original novel and explore what the author called him, as well as how other adaptations have named him. Perhaps then we can finally lay this debate to rest.
Class is dismissed.
Before we get too far, we need to examine the original text, what the author, Mary Shelley, called the creation. The novel first calls it the creature, a descriptor used a total of 18 times. This is far from the only term used to describe him. He is called specter and ogre once.
I'm an ogre!
He is referred to as a devil 8 times, being 10 times, daemon 16 times,
Demon.
Demon?
Stop calling you that.
Demon.
he is referred to as a wretch 17 times, and in 25 instances, he is called fiend. But what is the most frequent descriptor throughout the novel? Well, monster, of course, a total of 31 times. While he is given several titles, it may seem difficult to ascertain what Mary Shelley would have preferred the creature to be called. But she did actually give her preference in the 1823 play, Presumption, or The Fate of Frankenstein. Adapted 5 years after the novel's publication, the playbill labels the creature merely as. Shelley agreed with actually having the creature be nameless. She said, "This nameless mode of naming the unnameable is rather good."
Who are you?
He never gave me a name.
Of course, being nameless becomes a problem, like when Prince changed his name to a symbol, to which the media began calling him the artist formerly known as Prince. So if Mary Shelley intended for the creature to never have a name, there comes the question on the importance of authorial intent. Is Shelley's opinion the only lens we are allowed to see the creature in? Or has Frankenstein been adapted so often it has taken on a life of its own? One large departure from the novel came more than 100 years after the initial publication. In 1927, Peggy Webling adapted the story to the stage in Frankenstein, An Adventure in the Macabre. Webling's play was the basis for Universal's smash hit, but had several changes from Shelley's novel. In her play, Henry Frankenstein has the creature take on his own name as a point of pride. This familial connection is further emphasized by having the two dress similar. This is likely the origin point of calling the creature Frankenstein, but other factors would attribute to that.
Even if you somehow kill Dracula, Rome orders you to destroy Frankenstein as well.
He isn't evil.
Yes, but they say he isn't human either.
The pattern of a universal monster being named in the title dates back to 1923 with The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and 2 years later with The Phantom of the Opera. Dracula would continue this standard when it debuted in February of 1931. Frankenstein was released later that year, confusing audiences who may have also believed the title was also the name of the creature. The opening credits call him the monster, with the acting credit only listed as a question mark. The film only calls him monster twice.
Monster! Monster!
And Dr. Frankenstein refers to it as
This horrible creation of mine.
4 years later, Universal would continue to conflate the creature's name with the creator when they labeled the sequel The Bride of Frankenstein. However, The bride is never intended to be for Henry Frankenstein, but for the creature, as Dr. Pretorius explains.
You make man like me?
No. Woman. Friend for you.
And Pretorius also later claims the maid is
The Bride of Frankenstein.
the opening credits once again simply called him the monster, which is what he is predominantly called throughout the film.
Monster. Monster. Monster.
Monster. Monster.
Monster. Monster.
Monster. Monster.
Monster. Monster. Monster.
Monster.
Monster. Monster.
Monster.
I'm a monster!
With a few exceptions.
And with your creature still at large.
This is the fiend that's been murdering half the countryside.
And Dr. Frankenstein oddly describes him with some humanity.
Think of the power to create a man. And I did.
With Mary Shelley's frequent description of him as a monster, these films cemented that title in the public consciousness. Whether the creature was a Frankenstein remains heavily debated to this day. In fact, the follow-up film, Son of Frankenstein, would further confuse audiences. Whereas the titular Frankenstein was Henry in the first film, the bride was intended to be for his creature. This film revolves around the literal son of Henry. Likewise, the ghost of Frankenstein involves Henry's phantom allegedly haunting his son. Hammer Films would create a series of Frankenstein titles revolving on the Doctor creating a series of monsters. This brings up another question. Which monster are we referring to? Even within the Universal films, the abnormal brain of the first two films is later removed for Igor's. Is this monster the body or the act? Or is Victor the true monster?
Monster! Who's the monster here?
The word has roots with the Latin monstrum, meaning divine omen, especially one indicating misfortune, portent, or sign. Is the creature a divine omen for Frankenstein's transgressions? Or is the Doctor's allegorical tale a warning for us all?
I'll tell you the problem with the scientific power that you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it. You know, you read what others had done, and you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourselves, so you don't take any responsibility.
Another thing to consider is the human tendency for shorthand communication.
Friend? Yes, I hope so.
Especially in relation to Universal horror classics. Rarely is Dracula ever corrected to be Count Dracula. Often, the Bride of Frankenstein is sometimes shortened to simply the Bride. No one says Larry Talbot Jr. in werewolf form, because people understand when you say the Wolfman, nor is Imhotep usually called anything other than the Mummy. The term Gillman is just a throwaway line.
It still doesn't prove the possibility of a Gillman,
which has become his prevalent name, but no one is dismissed for calling him the creature. The perfect modern example is when people refer to Jaws as the shark when the film never calls the animal that name, and at best, it could be called Bruce.
Name's Bruce.
People also frequently call them predators, but no one is pedantically correcting people saying,
actually, they are the Yautja.
These are all the same semantics, but are oddly never debated with other horror icons. The trope of having the film be the name of the villain is so entrenched in our culture, we misremembered that Chucky's first appearance wasn't in Chucky, it was in Child's Play. But another question to consider is what the creature would prefer to be called. Unlike Godzilla, who was named after a Japanese legend, Frankenstein's creation has intelligence, emotions, and preference. Given the option, would the creature want to be called
Frankenstein.
In the series Penny Dreadful, he is at first given a name.
I never asked your name.
Fear not. You shall have a nom de théâtre. Do you know the Tempest? No. You shall be Caliban.
But later decides on a new one.
What's your name?
John Claremont.
After the English poet, a man he identifies with.
By all accounts, he was only 5 feet tall, so considered freakish. Perhaps due to this, he felt a singular affinity with the outcasts and the unloved, the ugly animals, the broken things.
In I, Frankenstein, he is also initially given a name.
I understand Frankenstein never offered you a name. I should like to call you Adam.
This is reference to the original novel where the creature metaphorically sees himself as Adam, but also Lucifer.
Remember that I am thy creature. I ought to be thy Adam, but I am rather the fallen angel who thou drives from joy for no misdeed.
And you must be Frankenstein.
My name is Adam.
We are all the sons of our fathers, are we not?
He equally sees himself as Satan, a trait he shares with his father. Victor states,
All my speculations and hopes are as nothing, and, like the archangel who aspired for omnipotence, I am chained to an eternal hell.
But if given a choice, would the creature take the name Frankenstein? By the end of I, Frankenstein, he actually does.
I, descender of the demon horde. I, my father's son. I, Frankenstein.
In Mary Shelley's original text, both the creature and creator agree that Victor is a father. He states,
No father could claim the gratitude of his child so completely as I should deserve theirs.
Other versions of the creature have similarly agreed with this relationship.
Your firstborn has returned. Father.
Why do you weep?
He was my father.
A son carrying his father's name, regardless of the legitimacy of his birth, was not uncommon among the Swiss. Even if one were to regard the creature as a mere creation, works of art are often referred to by their creator's name. For example, a painting by Pablo Picasso might simply be called a Picasso.
Something Picasso? He won't amount to a thing.
There is so much philosophy and complexity as to whether the creature can simply be named
Frankenstein!
But perhaps Mary Shelley's creature answers it best.
What was I? The question again recurred to be answered only with groans.
To the stalwart semantics, it is unlikely anyone will ever agree to always call him Frankenstein's monster.
And I won't say it. All right, you win. You win. I give. I'll say it.
But the shorthand enthusiasts shouldn't be surprised when they're corrected. But what do you think? If you enjoyed this video and think we deserve it, bogus! Please subscribe. If you are in a position to help, please support us on Patreon and keep coming back for more spooktacular videos. I'm Heidi with Channeling Spirits, and thanks for watching.